before we start, guys, so please make yourselves comfortable if you want to grab a drink. We've got 5 minutes yet, so and if you can download your workbook, your handout that we've sent you, if you want to if you want to download that as well, I'll send you the link as well just to make sure that you have that. Oh, as if by magic. Thank you, Sabina. Perfect. Brilliant. Okay, guys, so the link to the handout is in the chat box there if you want to download that. Just ask you a few questions just so we can tailor any future training as well. The information that you do give us is just kept within 9-Dex development. It is protected under GDPR, so it doesn't go anywhere else. So a bit longer. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kim. And Rachel as well. Hi. So for those who have just joined, in the chat box you can see the handout, the link to the handout there, so you can click on that, get the information that accompanies this webinar as well.
I feel like I should have made more of an effort and dressed up a bit.
You look fantastic. This thing is like the newsreaders, isn't it? You just don't know what
That's
people
true.
are wearing.
That's very true.
Hi, Will. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Kim. And Sue. Hi, Sue. David. And David. Hi. Darren. Hi. Carmel. Alessandra. Hi. Hi, Gracilia.
Hello.
Hello. Right. Hi, Luke.
Hello.
Hi. And there's another Sue as well. Hi, Sue. And hi, James. Another James. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Debbie. I tell you what, it would be a lot easier if it put it in the order that you came in as opposed to alphabetical, because I'm just keep going up and down looking for new names. So if you see my eyes going up and down, that's why. Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
Hiya.
Do you want me to unmute? Don't go on mute.
It's totally up to you, because I'll be asking for us to talk and chat, so you can go on mute until you take yourself off. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, John. Hi, Neil. Hi, Cindy. Hiya, Lee.
Yeah.
Hiya. Oh, we're coming in thick and fast now. I'll do I'll wait till, oh yeah, it's just turned past. Fantastic. So, welcome everybody. I think I've gone through most of the names. There's some people joining now. So we've got Access Bank, welcome. Amanda, Andrew, Alina, Alessandra. We've got an interesting code there. I can't pronounce that code. Hi, Andy. Hi, Anita. Hi, Arabella. And Blaze. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Hiya. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Bo. Hi, Jack.
Like that.
Hiya. Hi, Kamaljit. Hi, Maribel. Hi, Mark. Natalie. Hiya. Hi, Neil. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
Hiya. Hi, Tracy. Right. Fantastic. Okay, hi Ashley. Hi Dom. Hey Lucy. Okay, there you go. Hi Rebecca. Hi. Fantastic. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here at Nine Dots Development for our Uncovering and Overcoming Unconscious Bias with staff. So, welcome. So, in the chat box, we will send you the handout that goes with this session as well. So, in there, it's got lots of useful information as well. Also, did you have time to read the pre-reading as well that we sent you about unconscious bias? Really interesting reading there on the it's an introduction really to what we're talking about today, but you can still access that later, and then we'll send you some more information following the session as well. Okay. We will send it with the recording as well. So after the session, we're recording the session today, so you can access that. So if you have any problems with that at all, please let us know. But it's really useful that we can use this recording in the future as well to send to you. And also you can share it, you can re-listen to it after, you can access all the material again as well. Right. Fabulous. So WebEx then, let me just make sure that you're all comfortable with that. So we've got the cameras, we've got audio, and we've got chat. Okay, so on your screen, you'll have your little microphone button, so you can mute and unmute yourself there.
What's going on right now?
Got stop and start video as well, so we can see you, which is wonderful to see so many faces. Thank you. And then also you've got your chat box as well. So in your chat box, which is like a little speech bubble, in the chat box there you can click a name or you can click on everyone, and you can send a message to everyone as well. There we go. Okay, and that's where Sabina will send you the handout as well, so you can download it from that, or you may well have downloaded it from our website. So fantastic, thank you for coming today to talk about unconscious bias, understanding it, uncovering it, and overcoming it as well. So unconscious bias then, it's where we kind of make decisions, not based on logic, but the way that we perceive and we think about things. I'm just going to pop you on mute, just because we've got some background music. Oh, I say no, we're not in a lift. Background noise coming in. So if you'd like to chat, which is wonderful, just take yourself off mute so we can all hear you, and then pop yourself back on mute as well. Also in the chat box as well. Hi, Mark. Okay then, so unconscious bias then, yeah, it's where it's not unusual and we shouldn't beat ourselves up about it. The main thing that we need to make sure is that we check ourselves and actually say, right, why am I making that decision? Why am I thinking that? And this free webinar will help you understand that, help you uncover it, and help you overcome it as well. And we'll also look at how you've been affected by unconscious bias in your organisation as well, and also how we can help with training for that as well. Okay, so let's look at our interactive session today. So as we do our virtual training, we are classes all in one classroom. So please, as I said, take yourself off mute if you want to have a chat. There's lots of us on the session today. So if you take it in turns, that would be fantastic, and respect each other's opinions. And we'll try not to talk over each other, but with 97 participants, that might be a bit of a challenge. So please use the chat box as well, and I'll keep my eye on that as well. So we're looking to about 45 minutes today. We've got access to a whiteboard. We've got the audio and chat, as we've mentioned. You can make your own notes as you go. We've got the handout for you, which will also have useful resources and articles. But please give me a shout at any time if you've got any questions at all. My name is Kerry Clarkson. I'm here, one of the trainers here at Nine Dots Development. And I'm really pleased to be here today to talk to you about unconscious bias. I think it's something that we're really being aware of in our organisations now. It's always been there, but it's really making sure that we're aware of it and we check ourselves and our people as well. Really important as managers, as leaders, working in HR as well. this is really important for everyone in the organisation. That's why it's important to make sure that our people are being trained on this, that they are made aware of it. So we all have unconscious bias, whether we know it or not. It is within us, and we have to just be aware of that. With the handout, it will ask you a few questions, as I said. So please download that. It is an external site, but it is safe. It's within 9docs development. We adhere to GDPR, so your information won't go anywhere else at all. It's just in order to help us design and tailor materials in the future to you as well. Okay. So let's look at our objectives today. So at the end of our webinar today, then, we're going to understand what bias is, what unconscious bias is, and we'll look at different types of bias as well. With the article that we sent you, we looked at lots of different biases in there, and we'll look at 3 particular ones today. We'll also engender people to challenge their thinking. So we'll look at 4 steps which will help you to actually think, right, why am I thinking that? Where does that information come from? And also we'll look at steps to overcome unconscious bias in your organisation as well. Any questions on that at all? Right. So what we're going to look at, we're going to look at our thought patterns. Sometimes we don't know where that comes from, so we'll look at where that comes from, look at a practical way of overcoming any potential biases when we make decisions, because it can affect decisions in recruitment, in promotions, which will affect you, your organisation, your team, potentially the reputation of the organisation as well. So it's really important that we come to overcome that, because it's really important in our decision making that we consider how we've got to that decision, and it gives the organisation increased protection against potential discrimination as well. So let's start at the start then to understand unconscious bias then. Okay. So with the Daily Dot, the article then, how many of you managed to have a chance to read that? What are your thoughts on what unconscious bias is? So take yourselves off mute or pop it in your chat box.
Well, I assume it's just perceived or perceptions of characteristics, features in people's personalities, dare I say prejudices, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we might not be aware of it, had we either, David? So sometimes it's influences that may have when we've grown up with. We might have had peers. We might have external influences, the media.
Yeah.
What other people tell us, and all our own experiences. we have a filter, don't we? The way that we see the world, we see it through a lens. And we may well go and see a film, and people might have a completely different opinion on that film than us. Some people will give it 1 star, some people will give it 5 stars. Because we have different filters, we see it through a different lens. So it's really important that you're aware of that as well. So let's look in the chat box here then. Fantastic. Yeah, so Julie, making assumptions about situations. Absolutely. Yeah, we jump to conclusions. Our brain takes in 11 million bits of information every second, but we only actually kind of think about 40 consciously, but it's 11 million pieces of information per second, because our brain is processing all that information, but we can only consciously think about 40. So all those other things, that it either gets deleted, or it gets generalized, or it gets distorted because of all our filters that we have. So we really need to be aware of that. So yeah, our assumptions about situations, about people, judgments, Diane. Yeah, we make judgments in a split second about how we view the world. And the reason for that is our brain, yes, it's our friend. It does things on our behalf. It detects patterns. Because of all this information, we can't be expected to process all that information. It's almost like a safety mechanism to save us having to think about all that information at one time. Your brain over time makes patterns and judgments for you. And that's the reason we have to kind of check it and say, actually, right, okay, why have I made that judgment? Francis, yeah, putting people, situations in categories based on previous knowledge or experiences, which we might or might not be aware of. Yeah, absolutely. It's done for us, isn't it? In that split second. So we all have experiences. We all put people into boxes to save us that time. Tracy, attitudes based on previous experiences. Yeah, and we've been taught to react a certain way based on what happened last time. And Clarice, conclusions, assumptions, decisions based on your own, sometimes narrow, lived and learned experiences. Absolutely. Spot on. Really good understanding there, guys. Thank you. The article I mentioned, some of you might not have received that, so it will be on our website in the Daily Dot, so you can access that as well. Okay. Lots of information on there. But yeah, it's really fascinating. If you think of, if I have an example of the famous white van man, and I apologize to any white van men drivers out there, but if you have sometimes this assumption that a white van man might have pull up at the lights next to you and they're revving the engine and they've got Coke cans on there and they've got the Sun newspaper, they've got things hanging from the mirror, dice hanging from the mirror maybe, and then they're going to try and cut you up. That might be, I had one experience of that. So now my brain tells me that every white van is going to try and cut me up at the lights because it's a shortcut. It's a brain shortcut for you and it's trying to protect you. So don't beat yourselves up because that is what happens. We're the key is that we have to be aware of our unconscious bias, especially when making decisions at work, because we need to think about, right, do I need to override what my brain is telling me and think about it in a conscious, unbiased way, thinking about, okay, do I need to bring somebody else in here? Do I need to think about another opinion? Because it's unintentional bias, it's not on purpose, and we've got to be careful that we don't discriminate, we don't promote people, we don't recruit the wrong people, because it's not fair on them if they're recruited into the wrong position, but also it could reputational damage to the business as well. And as a manager, leader or HR, could make your lives difficult as well if you do recruit the wrong person into the team as well. And people can be biased about just about anything. There's gender, skin colour, age, communication styles, what football team they support, if they have a moustache because their uncle has a moustache and they don't get on with their uncle, therefore they don't like people with moustaches. So it's all these different things that we might not even be aware of, and it's internalised. So as I said, the human brain does this to help us, to keep us safe, but we have to question that. Is that shortcut the right thing to be thinking? Okay. So fantastic understanding there, guys, of understanding what unconscious bias is all about. Ooh, let's have a look at the chat box here, Francis. I drive two vehicles, a Honda Jazz and a van, and other drivers very nicely react differently when I'm driving the van. Give me more space, let me into the road reverse if we be at a small road. Interesting. Nice one. Yeah, so have you noticed as well, when I drive my mum's car, which is like a little old car, people just don't move out the way or let you out either. Whereas or it could be if you drive a brand new car, people automatically say, well, I'm not letting them out because they've got a brand new car. So you're right, it's judgments, isn't it, in a split second. It's fascinating, it really is. So let's have a look at some statistics then. Now we know what unconscious bias is and how it works. Really fascinating, some figures here for you. Again, we're pre-programmed, so don't beat yourself up about this, but let's have a look. So when men apply for a job, they might only meet 60% of the qualifications, but they think, right, well, I'll just apply for it. Whereas women tend to only apply for meetings if they meet 100% of that. And some questions that are asked in it's something, in fact, that what you could do, an implicit association test, it's called. It measures attitudes and beliefs, that you may be unwilling to think about yourself or report. And what happens is it asks you questions in the IAT, and you might not know that you have this bias, and it actually brings up this information, actually confirms that you might have this bias. So it might ask you questions, for example, associated with science, and it might bring up to your attention that you might assume that men are more associated with science than women. So I'll send you a link after, but it's called the implicit association test. And based on that, some of the statistics were quite shocking. Mark, yeah, more like 20%. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah. Out of 200,000 participants, 76 people were biased towards men in regards to careers. Out of 200,000 participants, 68% were biased towards white skin over dark skin. And out of the 200, 67% felt uncomfortable talking to disabled people. And shockingly, 36% tend to think disabled people are not as productive as others as well, which is shocking when you think about those statistics. And there is a riddle about a father who brings his son into a hospital, and he needs an operation. And the surgeon in the hospital said, "I can't operate on this child because he's my son as well." And people automatically sometimes think, well, how's that right? Because the father's brought it in, but the surgeon is actually his mum. Because our brains automatically think, and it might be generational, but surgeons tend to be men. That's what our brains kind of tell us. Whereas probably as time goes on, it'll hopefully be much more equality. What are your thoughts about some of those statistics there? Tracy, hi. Yeah. Do we know what the makeup of the 2,000 participants was? Yeah, it was a varied split across the demographic. But yeah, it's really interesting. The link. In fact, let me. I do talk about it later, but let me send you the link now so you can access that, because you can take the test as well, which is interesting, and people in your organisation can as well. There we go. That's the link to that there. Sophie, that was your grandfather's favourite riddle over 50 years ago. Yeah, it is. It is scary that it hasn't changed, hasn't it? Yeah, I'm not showing my age, honestly, by doing that. And Cindy, yeah, shocking but not totally surprising. Yeah, it is, isn't it? We certainly do, Alina. Long way to go. Rebecca, sad but not surprising. Yeah, and agreed. Yeah, James, not surprised. Yeah, it's trying to be aware. That's the key, isn't it? With this, it's making sure that you are aware of it. Let me just bring you back to this. Sorry. The key is our brains, as we've said, are there to try and help us based on past experiences, but that isn't always the right thing to do. Some other stats in regards to that is what they did in a university in Columbia University. It was, they had a CV of a CEO called Heidi Rosen. And what they did is they showed that CV to a group of students, of asking them to rate their impression of her. And they rated her as power hungry and self-promoting, not very likable. They also gave that CV, but changed the name to Howard. Gave the CV to another group of people, and they said what, like a self-promoted, inspirational, motivational person that was. And all they did was change the name. So it's a really good example of gender bias there. Also, they also did research on CVs, and looking at a name on a CV can cause bias, because you can, from a name, people can assume things, and what we've talked about, assumptions as well, how dangerous they can be. And what they found is people with more ethnic sounding names had less callbacks than people with white sounding names using identical CVs. So it does exist, unconscious bias, but again, as I keep saying, it's how we approach that and how we deal with that.
Can I
Sorry.
just make a comment there?
Of course.
It's also why people, particularly from ethnic backgrounds, anglicize their names, which for me is quite a sad, I've got a very distinctive name, so like it or not, people will either find me or not find me, as the case may be. But I've always found it quite sad that somebody would take their first name, and more generationally, but even now, people will find sort of a hybrid name.
Yeah, I totally get it, Clarice. It's such a shame, and that they've actually been kind of forced into doing that because of their experiences, maybe how society has made them do that.
This is slightly at an adjunct, but I think it's partly because we are more the same than we are different. We do want to assimilate, but actually it's the difference that adds the value. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that I've noticed. It's less in my children's generation, certainly to a certain extent in mine, and in the previous generation, everybody was a John or a George from my background, and they really weren't.
Yeah, it is fascinating how hopefully society is evolving, Clarice, and that we hopefully won't have to do that anymore. But you're right, it's about embracing diversity. If we are all Johns and we all think the same way, how are we ever going to grow and reach potential and have diversity and have really interesting conversations and new ideas if you think about I don't know if you've heard of Belbin team roles and DISC, about how personality styles, if were all one style, if we were all decision makers, it would be a very difficult meeting because everybody would want to make the decision. Nobody would want to have the ideas. Nobody would want to go and speak to people because it would all be like, right, let's do it. If you have 12 people saying, let's do it, who's going to go and do it? So you hit the nail on the head there. It is all about diversity and actually having an inclusive environment and embracing those new ideas, new thought processes, not being the same, should be celebrated. Absolutely. Thank you, Clarice. That's really interesting. Let's look on chat as well. So, Laura, I wonder how much the language we use has to do with it. E.g., the word disabled dictates with less able and therefore possibly taken as less productive. Absolutely, you're really spot on there. It almost, again, how people perceive the word, they're automatically made a judgment there and then. And because you've done some of the tests as well, reassuring success and revealing in others. And that's the key, isn't it? We sometimes we don't know our unconscious bias because it is unconscious. We might think, oh, I don't do that. But yeah, it can be hidden away. Alex Worth reading a book called Invisible Woman, which looks at unconscious bias within size. Oh, that sounds interesting. I might have a look at that. Good thinking. And interested to see what. See, I don't keep up with. Is he somebody out of Love Island? Isn't it, Cindy? Can you tell us more about what's happened to her this week?
Yeah, so she was on the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett, and has been absolutely slated.
Really?
Across all social media platforms for a comment that she made, which is a 12-second comment that was taken completely out of context of the whole of the podcast. And Stephen Bartlett defended her, saying that if it was a man who was commenting about how he'd become successful and what he had, what he'd done, all the rest of it, and he's had guys on there who've done that, they're celebrated, whereas women are very conscious of making those comments because they get vilified for it. And it's almost like it's that whole gender bias. It's okay for men to do it, but not for women. We're seen as money grabbing, or we're singing our praises, or whatever it is. But yeah, she's 22. She was in Love Island, yes, but it very showing how society reacts differently to gender.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much like that CV from Heidi to Howard.
Yeah,
Suddenly they've gone from
definitely
power,
the same.
yeah, it's like power hungry to actually fantastic, well done, good for you. And it's shocking.
Can I just add to that actually?
Yeah.
With the whole Molly May thing, there was another influencer called Elle Darby that her tweets came up from when she was younger, and they were quite racist, and she got slandered for it for a little while, all over social media. But there's actually a big thing about Molly May, and obviously she's like kind of a similar age to me, kind of my generation of Love Island and all the rest of it. And she's made that comment, and she's had so much more slander for it than perhaps the other girl. Whether they should be slandered or not is a different issue. Whether those tweets should have been brought up is a different issue. But it's really interesting that there is that bias against Molly May, and it's it's hard to pinpoint why. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, it is interesting, and it could be one of the different types of bias called social comparison, where sometimes people can be threatened or jealous by somebody's success, and they see them as better than them. Therefore, they suddenly take a dislike to them. But yeah, gender bias it could be there as well. So there's all these different types of bias that could be in that one example. But you're right, some people kind of get targeted, don't they? Almost victimized. And yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of that kind of gender bias. As in, if a man had said it, would they have had this much press? Would it have been brought up into so much detail? Absolutely fascinating. Let's have a look. Sean, yeah, what makes a name ethnic? You're right. That's a really good point. What is British and what's ethnic now? It's a British name. A name shouldn't say anything about a person. That's why this example of changing names on CVs is so fascinating. Some people got callbacks and some people didn't. Cindy Stephen Bartlett defended. I'm going to have a look for that. I'm going to look at that online. Sean, people who have names that are considered ethnic were at a time in history forced to change their names, what must be considered. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Annalena, in some ways, I feel social media and image-driven society set us back in terms of unconscious bias. Yeah, social media does have a lot to answer for. It's a lot easier to slate people, isn't it? Really, it's quite scary, and it can be anonymous, can't it, as well? Thanks, Cindy. That's great. Thanks for sending that link. That's brilliant. And Charlie, a throwback to Katie Hopkins when she was associated naughty child with names. Yeah, Katie Hopkins. Yeah, very interesting. Right, I'll stop there before I say anything else about Katie Hopkins. Okay then, so let's look in a bit more detail then. Now we've looked at some statistics about your organisation then. So tell me about your experiences in regards to unconscious bias, whether you feel it happens in your organisation or previous organisations, if you're more comfortable at talking about that, and the impact that has had. Again, either on chat or on audio, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Funny enough, I actually work in care and support, so I work with the elderly, and the amount of people that think that my name is a boy's name and sort of question me, I always, and it's funny, isn't it? Because it has bothered me throughout my life for whatever reason. When people assume that my name's Charlotte or it's shortened for something. I've had birthday cards from people where they've just put Charlotte, and my name is purely Charlie. I've had employers call me Charlotte when I've gone for interviews. I've had a doctor open a door to me and say, "Oh, I thought you'd be a boy," and I was like, "Well, I'm really sorry to disappoint."
Yeah.
And I do get associated with that, and a lot of people make that assumption that it's only a minor one. Don't get me wrong, compared to a lot of people who have a lot, I guess, more severe biases towards them. But a lot of people do assume I'm a boy before they meet me because my name's Charlie. But it's quite going back to kind of that generational thing, Charlie probably was back maybe 50 years ago associated with a boy's name. But there's a lot more people my generation that are Charlie and just
Yeah.
Charlie and girls. But it's quite a common, yeah.
Wow, that's really, really good example. Thanks, Charlie. But what an assumption to make, though, that you know, you've got your name wrong. They're right, calling you Charlotte. You know, it's like, you know, I'm going to correct you and call you Charlotte.
I'm wrong for my name,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? But yeah, really, really good example. And you're right, names and what Sean said before. What is a name? You know, it was John and Jim and Edward, but now we have Apple, and Storm is a really popular name. But again, they're almost non-gender, aren't they? As well. So there's a whole other um, uh, potential bias that people can take into account there. But
I've
really
got
fascinating.
another example. My daughter is a really good cricketer, and she's the only girl on an all boys team.
Wow.
A good team. She captains the team, and we were abroad.
Brilliant.
And you know, she was playing a really good, cracking innings. And one of the dads started talking to one of the local people, and they were, oh, that boy is brilliant. She said, no, 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 that's our girl, and she's got long hair, but obviously you can't see that when she's playing.
Yeah.
And just watching his face when she was out, she took her helmet off, her hair fell down, and he just stood there, his jaw dropped and went, she's a girl. And it was just incredible. And he was very complimentary, but it was so ingrained that being told 10 times, I didn't say anything because it was my daughter, but 10 times just, no, 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 I'm talking about the one at the other end. He just wouldn't accept it until he saw it for his own eyes.
I mean, that's a brilliant example of assuming that only boys can play good cricket.
Yeah, it was technical. It was the fact she was technically the best player on that day.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like, it's the same as with football. I don't know if it happens with cricket as well. The actual airtime on TV for women's football compared to men's football, and the money involved as well. It's assumed that that is followed more.
That's changing. That is changing in cricket.
So good,
yeah,
good. That's really good.
But it wasn't a bad. The weird thing is, I didn't feel it was a bad bias. I felt it was a naive bias.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, girls can't play cricket. He'd just not come across the situation, and he was very embracing of it and her.
Good.
When long flowing hair came out.
Maybe, and again, that's the key, and that's why we're all here. Is the education side of it? Is to actually ensure we spread the word that actually, you know, it's a really good thing. There's so much potential and diversity by actually having so many different types of people involved in sport, but in your organisation as well. Absolutely, so much potential. Thank you, Clarice. Great. Let's have a look at some of the chats then. Rebecca, then, assumptions you can't attend development courses involving overnight stays because you're a mother. Absolutely, Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, that can affect recruitment. Absolutely everything, can't it? You know, this is why we have laws in recruitment about asking certain questions. But yeah, again, it's that assumption. You know, don't ask so-and-so because they've got a family. It automatically happens sometimes. They might even be thinking that they're thinking of you and doing you a favour, but it's having the opportunity, isn't it? David, I manage new referrals in my job, and as a white belt, it can be a little anxious when contacting new referrals who have names which are complicated to pronounce over the phone. I always try, but don't get it right, so I often have to ask the referred individual how to pronounce the name. That's really good, David. I totally empathise with you there, because again, when I'm training, I see names come up, and I will have a go, and then if it's something that I'm not quite sure of, hopefully they'll either correct me, which I'm totally, I'm really glad people do, or I'll just double check. Is that how you pronounce it? Or, you know, it's, and I would hope no one's ever said, you know, anything derogatory in that sense, that if I have tried, but I think as long as you do try, That's the key, and just ask and don't shy away from it.
I
Sorry.
sometimes Google names, how to pronounce this name, and it will sound it out to you. It will read it back to you.
That's a really good idea.
And there's also a feature on LinkedIn. If you have an unusual name, you can say your name, and if you attach it to your profile, people can listen to how you pronounce your name.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing.
But yeah,
Thank you.
also check. I do the same. I also sometimes ask for clarification as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Rebecca. That's amazing. The wonders of technology. That's brilliant. And Rebecca, again, customers surprised when female service technicians attend. Yeah, again, it's like Clarice's. It's a girl. It's the same thing in regards to traditional male jobs. But it's changing, and we need to educate. That's the key. Helen, many years ago, the feedback I received for not getting a job was that my London accent came through. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Well, I would struggle then if they didn't like accents. But yeah, I totally get you with accents. People assume things with accents. So again, it's interesting, isn't it? Like the newsreaders previously, newsreaders were accent kind of general, weren't there? There was no accent, whereas now we are starting to get accents in newsreaders as well. Andy, in general, Northern Ireland, Northern accents are often dismissed. Look at the ongoing battle Angela Rayner and others have. Yeah, again, it's very interesting, is it? Southern and London-based bias is a big one as well. Francis, my dad is disabled and speaks quite slowly, but he's totally capable of doing things like having interactions in shops. If I'm with him, people will give him almost no time to respond before looking at me and asking me the question instead. How frustrating for your dad as well. That's really upsetting. It's hard. Sometimes it's nerves. People don't know how to react, and there might be, again, with my experience with stuttering, people will try and finish the sentence for you because they're trying to help, but it actually comes across as really frustrating because you want to do it yourself. So yeah, I can understand the frustration there, Francis. Rebecca, in a manager position, female, not quite young for my age, and notice the difference in others' expectations, responses to me when I am emailing someone versus when I meet them in video call. Oh, interesting. That is very interesting, isn't it? So you've got female and age going on there. And trying the topic of accents, I have a strong Bristolian one. I've been associated with being a farmer or being stupid. See, I have that. It's with the West Midlands accent. So yeah, very frustrating.
I had I got a new job role where I currently work. I was promoted from an administrator to a manager, but I was promoted to the labour manager, so I was suddenly responsible for 60 men in a construction background, and quite a few of the older staff really struggled to then take instruction and direction from me because, one, I was female, and two, I was a lot younger than them.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's how did you get over that, Natalie? How are you dealing with that?
I treated them like I was one of the lads.
Yeah.
And I spoke to them in their language. So when I was out on site, if they were effing and jeffing in a conversation, I just joined in. And as soon as they realised that I was one of them and not, some stuck-up woman from the office, they soon came round. But it did take a while. And even going on site now, if they don't know who I am, you can see all these men suddenly looking up as if, oh, there's a woman on site. What do we do? She's female. Can't talk to her. And it did take a while, but we are getting there now.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Fantastic example of you flexing your style as well.
Yeah.
You're not going and going, right, you listen to me because I'm telling you to do this. It's right, let's get on the right communication style. You're talking to them one-on-one as opposed to do it because I'm telling you to do it, which is fantastic.
I think they were quite as nervous of me as I was of them.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we got past that, and it was a case of, well, yeah, she is all right. We can have a laugh with her. We can have the banter as long as we don't take it too far.
Yeah,
it was fine.
It's knowing the parameters, isn't it? Really, I suppose they and any change they might be feeling a bit, oh, how do we react? But the fact that you've tackled that head on, and actually the barriers have come down now, which is fantastic. And as with a lot of unconscious bias, there might be misunderstanding there. They might be nervous that they don't want to offend you, but don't know how to do it. So again, it comes back to education as well. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Nice. Okay then. So Amanda, I was once asked by a primary school teacher to encourage my little boy not to play with another child as from different social backgrounds. Oh my word. That's shocking. Wow. It's scary, some of these examples. Thank you for sharing, everyone. It's really good. Laura, media sometimes deliberately uses actors and presenters with regional accents to be more relatable. Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's like when Tony Blair came out with his cup of tea outside Number 10 as well. It's showing that I'm a man of the people. It's like breaking down those barriers, but also if we can see through it, if it's not genuine, it actually makes it a bit worse, doesn't it? Let's have a look. Jen, I've encountered gender bias throughout my career with from director level members of staff making inappropriate sexual comments about younger female employees to female staff being put in meetings because they're nice to look at, amongst other things. It's absolutely shocking, isn't it, that this goes on? Wow. I work in security, and the amount of meetings I go to when people expect me to man is horrific. Or when I say I work in security, they see I'm about, so it's awful. Wow, Amy, yeah. Jen and Amy, flipping at your examples, it's scary that it goes on, doesn't it? Because we think we're getting better in organisations as a society, but it's so good that we can do this and share with each other that you're not on your own. Tracy, after successfully getting a job, I was able to access the notes made by the people interviewing. Under the question, where they asked about managing stress, the interviewer had written, too young to know anything about stress. I was 28 and had been managing a night shelter for the homeless. Wow. That's amazing, isn't it? And yeah, interviews are so important in unconscious bias. Wow. Louisa, I agree, Rebecca. When I've been in a room with men, the man will be addressed first rather than myself. Yeah. Eye contact as well. Lots of pronunciation websites recording our design. Yeah, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. That's really good to share. Brilliant, good tips. Funny podcast here from Clary said, fabulous. Humour is really good, definitely. Why does mispronouncing a name constitute a bias? I don't see how it produces of any kind. It's not so much the bias, Mavis, it's more of the understanding and making sure that we're, it's not a bias. It's, say if it was on a CV, that would be bias if you thought, well, I'm not going to bring that person because I don't know how to pronounce their name. But asking how better to pronounce it is fine. David, bit controversial statement. Governments throughout history have used divide and rule tactics to keep societies in control and for leaders to deflect the guilt of their own actions away from the public attention. Pitting people against each other through gender, racial, religious, political, age differences is something we all to be mindful of before we risk turning on each other. Absolutely loving unity. Wow. And David, there tends to be an unfair assumption that the elderly either lack of capacity or are deaf. Absolutely, yeah. With the example of the dad there, definitely. Yeah, it's frustrating you actually need to change your behaviour to be accepted. I know what you're saying, Louisa, but the key is as a manager, leader, or in any role in HR, it's about flexing your style. So if you look at a bit more about DISC, it's a really good way of flexing styles where it is, if, for example, you're usually a very direct person, sometimes this might not go down with somebody who's quite an introverted, shy person. So it's about kind of flexing your style to actually better communicate, not change you or your personality, just to be able to better communicate with somebody. Let's have a look. Still agree. Worked abroad in the UK, Francis, as an ESL teacher. When I've worked with schools in Southeast Asia, I've noticed I actually have an unfair advantage. That's interesting. I had a friend in Vietnam to qualify the maze one came from Singapore. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, so it can provide an unfair advantage and an unfair disadvantage then, unconscious bias. Very interesting point. Well done. I think we need to be more open, tolerable to fellow humans make mistakes in wording, reactions and articulation, unless of course it's from a place of malice. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's trying, isn't it? It's not being biased on purpose. Unfair advantage again. Yeah, it's really being aware. We should have to adapt to be approached to be accepted. Talk about diversity. We should be strong in ourselves to change cultural bias and lead from the top. Very challenging to achieve, but we must lead by example, Adam. Yeah. Again, not changing personality or culture, just flexing your style. That's the important key. Yeah. Generational people tend to look down on younger leaders. Must also think carefully about our own biases. Yeah. So we might have a bias that people look at us biasly. So yeah, it's like a catch-22, isn't it, really? So again, it's all that kind of leaving that at the door and then seeing the situation for what it is. And Alina, will we feel we've got there when we've reached a point where a woman doesn't have to act more like a man to fit in? Yeah, it's an interesting one. Again, I suppose it's not being fitting to be a man. It's about that communication, how best to get the communication from the other person. And hopefully when you've made that flexibility to connect with the other person, that other person will then connect with you as well. This, David, you've used in situational leadership. Really, really good, fantastic model. Again, something that we do at 9 Dots if you're interested in doing that, DISC and situational leadership. It is fascinating. Yeah, absolutely, Rebecca. Fantastic. Right then, guys, I'm just going to leave chat alone because I could do this all day long, and I don't want you to have to be here till tonight. So I'm just going to carry on with the material for a bit, just so I can give you as much information as possible. Okay. So please, you keep looking at chat as well, just so you can get some top tips off each other as well and networking. So with the article that you'll have access to on the Daily Dot, it looked at lots of different types of unconscious bias. And the three that I'm just going to point out, and I've mentioned previously, social comparison, affinity bias, and confirmatory. So social comparison is a really interesting one, where we compare ourselves to others and we seem to kind of take a dislike potentially to somebody who has a better standing or status or possessions than us. So this might be the Molly May kind of aspect that we've talked about, that people go, she's done really well just because she's been on telly. People might have that bias towards her. Or it might be where somebody's been given a promotion, for example, and we think we're threatened by that person or by somebody who went for a job similar to us. Affinity bias then. Again, it might happen automatically where people might have similar beliefs, values, experiences to us, and we see those people in a positive light and those people who don't have the same feelings as us in a negative light. So someone, for example, who supports wolves, I have to be really careful that I don't think they're the best thing since sliced bread just because they support wolves. That's that affinity bias, that we have something in common. It's great that you find things in common, but it's about that it doesn't affect your decision making. It's great that we can find common ground, but just because somebody went to the same school as you, you don't give them that role if you were recruiting. And then the confirmatory bias is all about almost like the law of attraction, where you believe something and then you set out to look for those examples that confirms that. Almost like the white van man that I was talking about before. And also, if you think negatively of somebody or you think positive of somebody, it's like the horns and halo effect. No matter what they do, if they've got the halo effect, they can't do anything wrong. If they've got the horn effect, whatever they do, they're not going to be the person. Okay, so it's really important to be aware of the different types of bias, and there's more on that link as well that is on the Daily Dot. Okay. So a couple of scenarios I'm just going to whiz through because I'm just conscious of time. So for example, in an interview, on the way to an interview, a person starts talking about rugby and they find that they support the same team. And during the decision-making process, they think, this person's going to be a really good fit for the team. What type of bias do you think that might be? On the, yeah, absolutely, the affinity, because we've got something in common with that person. Okay. Let's have a look. Joe then has been recently appointed to the new position of manager, but Sadiq also went for the same position. Although Joe got it, Sadiq was very close. So now Joe's spending a lot of time with Sadiq, watching really closely and correcting all the mistakes. Okay. What do you think Joe is going through at the moment? Well, good guess, Rebecca, Natalie, but it is actually social comparison. Nice one, Kevin. Yeah, because what we're looking at, she's feeling threatened because he's got similar skills and experience. She's comparing herself to him and thinking, ooh, and there might be a bit of jealousy there. Or she might be feeling a bit scared because he went for the same job that she's gone for as well. And then lastly, this is the confirmatory one. So an interviewer notices a candidate is not clean shaven and thinks that all people they've worked with previously who aren't clean shaven tend to be less proactive. So this person has probably met this person at the door and thought, this person is automatically thought it, and it's probably in a split second, and he might not even be aware of that. And what he's done in the interview, he focuses on the negative rather than the positive because of that that confirmatory bias, that split second decision. So we've looked at lots of reasons for bias, and we've had a fantastic chat as well about bias, but it's really important to know how to overcome it, okay, because we know it exists, and it's really important that we're aware of it. As I've said, we have to be aware of it, because when we make decisions at work, it's making sure that we can override this unconscious with a conscious decision if we have evidence. Because of that, becoming more aware of our thoughts and what's driving them will make us more be able to prevent this unintentional bias. It could prevent conflict and discrimination, promotes respect, diversity, inclusion in work. And there's real positives to overcoming it, because people will be more engaged in work. People will know it's an inclusive place to work. There's that innovation that we talked about, this so many new ideas, because we're not all the same person. We've got new ideas coming from different perspectives. Shows a real understanding of people, this diverse, open culture, that everyone is valued. And of course, for the organisation, that will mean impressive financial results. People will want to come and work for you. The retention side of staff as well, rather than having the negative side, could be having a reputation of not being an inclusive employer, which will then affect the financial side negatively. So first part then is being aware of your assumptions. Then it's about recognising yourself, thinking about potentially filling out that the link that I sent you before, the questionnaire. If we don't know what we're unconscious bias about, how can we deal with that? So it's being aware and making sure that before you make that decision, you know where that is coming from. And then we need to question, why are you thinking that? Where has that come from? What is the evidence? Why do you suddenly think this? Where has that come from? Do you know why you're thinking that? Is it your past experiences? Is it media? And question yourself. And then challenge yourself as well. Put it under some rigour. Ask other people's views. Look at the data. Would you make the same decision if it was a person of a different race, age, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or any other criteria? Would you make the same decision? So thinking of that example of the CV of Howard and Heidi. And then once you've done all that, you've challenged your judgments, your assumptions. ask yourself, well, what about if I did recruit that person? What else could they bring? So if I'm thinking about somebody contributing at work, and my unconscious bias is that this person wouldn't be good, this person wouldn't be good because of this, that, and the other. Think of if you had recruited them, what could they bring? And actually challenge yourself. So somebody who does have a family, who is from a different country, who does speak differently to you, who is relaxed. And if you're a direct person, somebody who's less direct than you. Every working style background has different strengths to bring to an organisation. Okay? How can they be an asset to you and your organisation? Okay. And then once you've done all that, make your decision and go ahead with that decision. You've got all the information, and then you've got think about all the advantages of overcoming that unconscious bias, the engagement of your people, the innovation, the ideas that can come from lots of different people, and the actual financial results as well. So when we think about getting this message out to your teams, how do you do it at the moment? How do you make sure, as managers, leaders, HR, whatever your position is, how do you make sure that this is trained in your organisation, that people understand and committed to it? How is it cascaded down so it's part of the culture of an organisation? Some ideas might be it's done in onboarding, in the induction stage. Do you have an annual refresher? Is it HR that's responsible? Is it managers that are responsible? Do you have team training, e-learning, individual training? How do you do it? If you'd like to, again, come on audio or come on chat and tell me all about it. Does anybody have training in place? Like, when somebody joins your organisation, do you have like an e-learning that they must complete as part of their induction?
We've got an e-learning on unconscious bias that has to be done.
Fantastic. It's really important that it is part of this is how we do things here. Annual refreshers is really important, that it's part of the culture. It's part of how we do things here. So it's really important that it is, and it comes from on top as well. This is how we do things at our organisation. It's really important.
I think as well as training, you've got to walk the walk on it, and it's got to be everyday part of what you do. And we've got to be a bit honest and forgiving. I've seen a few things in the chat. I'm married to a middle-aged, white, wonderful man who's not biased, but feels it acutely because he's in an overrepresented group, and that's not his fault. We are born into what we're born into. The question is, what are we going to do about it?
Absolutely. You're absolutely, Clarice.
I do think alongside the training, we almost have to practice it.
It's absolutely embedding it. The training is the easy part, isn't it? The training is a tick box exercise almost. You have done the e-learning, therefore I know all about unconscious bias. But is it managed? Is it where is it recorded? How is it embedded? How is it? How is it in the strategy? How is it cascaded down throughout the organisation? Really, really important. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Of course, yeah. Hi, Jackie, yeah.
Hi. I'm in an organisation where we're relatively small. How do you, all of you who seem to have achieved it, how do you raise that agenda in an organisation who blatantly don't believe they have this issue? Maybe really that's the problem, is when you blatantly don't believe you have it, you probably have it more than anyone else.
It's so unconscious that they don't even know. Yeah.
What are the strategies others have used to get their organisation to embed these kind of processes or to be more reflective on how they operate? I'd be interested to hear.
Jackie, I'm a director on a cricket board, and how we've started this, and I'd like them to all come on this thing, is we started it with EDI training. So we've done it as part of equity, diversity and inclusion training, and why that matters to us, not just morally, socially, but as part of our organisation, our operational case, our business. And we've just started talking about unconscious bias through that, which seems to work in traditional circles.
Okay,
so
that's
we've
helpful.
done it as part of something else rather than going, you know, you're an organisation that's bound to be riddled in it's just the first step.
Yeah, no, that's helpful actually. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Carissa.
Brilliant. Thanks for that question, Jackie. Really, I'm sure you're not on your own with that at all. And Clarice, thanks for sharing. Really, really good. And keep your eye on the chat box as well, because there's lots of people sharing great ideas on there as well. I'm sorry I haven't got time to read them all out, but please keep your eye on that as well. I'm just conscious of time for you. So yeah, really important that, Jackie, thank you, that it is part of the strategy, that it's part of your organisation, and we can help with that as well. With your pack that we'll send you, you'll have lots of information in there as well. Lots of articles, training programs, links to books, a free consultation as well, and you'll also have a recording of this session. Okay. So it's really useful info, and you can always get in touch and ask us more questions as well. So I've got a favour to ask for you. If you could do a poll for me, I'm going to ask you some questions on a quick poll on the screen here. So I will get that sorted for you now. Let me just bring it up. Some lovely comments on chat. Thanks, guys. Go. So can you see that come up on your screen? There's a little poll, just a few questions for you to answer. If you could do that for me, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And also you'll get an email after the session asking for some feedback as well, which helps us improve our service to you, these free webinars and the free material, but also our other services as well that we do. We have these free content here, our blogs and our Joining the Dots webinars. We have 95% funded training on our apprenticeship programs, and also we do private training as well. So I'm just going to send you those links in the chat box as well. So please do get in touch if you have any other questions or comments on anything at all. So I'll just pop these in the chat box while you're doing the poll. Let's get the chat box back up. So you can just copy and paste these straight out of your chat box and save them then either on a Word document or on your bookmarks. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. And then we've got our next webinars coming up. So we've got the 27th of Jan is effectively communicating with your stakeholders. And then on the 10th of Feb, how to use workplace conflict as a beneficial tool as well. So thanks for all your comments. Have you got any questions? I'm sorry that we've talked so much that we've got carried away with time, but it's been I've really enjoyed talking to you and sharing ideas and thoughts. And I hope you feel better as well, that you're not on your own, that unconscious bias is happening all around us. And the idea is that we're aware of it, we challenge it, and we can make the difference if we lead from the front. We need to show people how we can change. Okay, so any other questions, any comments? Thanks for your comments on chat, guys. It's much appreciated. Thank you. Any questions or anything else anyone would like to share? Thank you for doing the poll as well, much appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. As I said, you'll get this recording, but please, if there's anything else at all, please do get in touch. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
very much. Take care now. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks for coming.
Just doing my poll, mate. You done your poll yet?
Thank you. That'd be great. Yeah, if you could finish that off, that would be fab. Thank you.
I think I've